Hallelujah. Good evening, church. Tonight we have another number of our family mother, and tonight we have a very fantastic topic called Unlock Your Healthy Living. So before we start and we present you our guest tonight, I want to take 1 minute to pray because we believe God is in our midst and there's something He wants us to learn. So we want to thank you, God, for tonight, for another opportunity. We know, Lord, that you have brought us here for a purpose, and there is something you want to unlock in us. Lord, we pray that you unlock our knowledge, you unlock our spirit to receive what is being taught, and we'll be able to remember and to practice it so that we can live a divine and healthy life. In Jesus' name we prayed. Amen. Thank you for joining. I want you to share. I want you to call your friend, that everybody connect, because tonight we are going to unlock that divine health. It's good to unlock your gift, but you have to be alive to enjoy those gifts. So today we want to bring on to you the secret of living long with Christ. So tonight we have a very special guest. I think you've already guessed. We have Dr. Taiba. She came here to give us the secret. So I want you to be ready, and we want more questions. So please stay connected so that you can listen to everything. And at the end of each topic, we're going to read your question, and we're going to ask you questions. So I'm going to greet Dr. Taiba tonight. Good evening, doctor.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me.
So we are so pleased, so happy to have you tonight. So we're going to let you do your own thing. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so let's start.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Taiba Eribo, and I'm an obstetrician and a gynecologist by training. And today, I take care of women, by the way. I only take care of women. So it's such a extra special privilege to be invited to talk about health, especially as it pertains to women. Given that it is our Women's Month of Unlock. And so it's very fitting that I was invited to come have a chat with everyone about how to live healthy. So like I said, I'm an obstetrician and a gynecologist who only takes care of women, but I hope that the topic that I will share tonight will be beneficial to the men as well, and that you can pick a thing or two about how to apply it to your own life as well. Um, I would really like this to be as interactive as possible rather than me giving a lecture. No one wants a lecture. So I will start with just throwing some questions out there to see what people think about this. So in this month of March, Women's Month, where we're talking about unlocking health, unlock in general, I think it's important that we touch every aspect of what that means.
Yes.
Right? Spiritually, we're getting that. But I think we also need to talk about our physical health.
Oh, yes.
Because those are usually areas of our life that remain locked for one reason or another.
Yes.
So today, I've titled my talk, The Complete Woman.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I think it's important for you to also have good health to be complete.
Oh, yes. Very important, yes.
So when we talk about health and healthy living, what do we know about it? What is health? What is health? I'll just give us a few seconds to see if anyone writes anything on there about what we think health is. I've heard people say health is when you're not sick. That's good.
That's what we think. I mean, if I can stand,
Yeah.
am I healthy? If I can stand and go to work, does it mean I'm healthy?
Exactly. Does it mean you're healthy? I've had people say that I don't have high blood pressure. And I'm like, do you go to the doctor? No. I just feel it that I don't have high blood pressure, so I'm healthy. Right? And then there are people that are like, I don't have diabetes. I would know if I had diabetes. But have you been to the doctor? No. So there are certain things that you might not feel. The absence of feeling something doesn't mean you don't have it.
Okay.
Just because I don't feel like I have high blood pressure or because I don't feel like I have diabetes. You're like, oh, my body would tell me.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that you're healthy, right?
Okay.
Just because you're able to walk and go to work and go about your daily life, does that mean you're healthy? Just because you're thin and tiny and skinny, does that mean you're healthy?
That's very important because we tend to think when you are big, you are not healthy, and the skin, you are not healthy.
Yeah. I remember very vividly, I was in medical school many years ago while we're waiting for responses.
Yes.
Me and my co-student, we went for a health check. And at that time, I was skinnier than this. And she was big. She was big, and I was skinny. And my cholesterol was high.
Oh, wow.
And I kept telling her, I was like, why is my cholesterol high and yours is low? And she was like, Taiba, just because I'm fatter than you doesn't mean that you're healthier than me. And I was like, you're right. Does skinny mean healthy? So what do we think is health? What is health?
Okay, family, what do you think it's health? So please put your question, your answers. We want to know that we are all together on the same page. What does it mean to be healthy? Is it looking skinny? Is it eating well? What do you think is being healthy? So we are waiting for your answers. I think they're still connecting, and we have to share the link. Yes.
Someone who is physically healthy but has depression that is not checked, are they healthy? Do we think about mental health as part of our health? So I'll go ahead and just answer the question, and people can just jump in, and we can go along. So health is a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being.
Social
Well-being. So physical, mental, and social well-being. It is not just the absence of disease. So it is not only someone with cancer that's unhealthy, right? Just because you don't have any disease or infirmity does not mean that you are healthy.
Okay.
It needs to be a balance. And the goal is always to be healthy, which means that it is a journey to get there, right? You never become healthy. You always strive to become healthy because you might be physically fit, but are you mentally fit? Are you socially balanced?
I never thought of socially as being healthy. Socially health. Okay.
Yeah, like people that are socially marginalized, think about the social economic impact of that, right? The social determinant of health, right? Those are things that we talk about all the time. You live in a community that is a food desert. You don't have access to healthy foods. Or you live in a community that is, quote unquote, not a good neighborhood, right? Where you can't just walk around freely. That every time you come out of your house, there is some fear and some palpitations. That is not healthy.
Okay. So the environment.
The environment in which we live, the interactions, the social interactions that we have, or the lack thereof, right? So people who don't have friends, don't have family, are isolated. They are not healthy. But those are not things that we necessarily think about when we talk about health. So health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. It is not just simply the absence of disease. Okay. Someone might say financial well-being is also important. Spiritual well-being is also important, right? Like this is a definition from the World Health Organization, but it is not a complete and exhaustive list. But it is just to get us thinking about what we think of when we talk about health, and to get us away from that mindset that healthy is physical only, right? Because we tend to think that way, that we tend to define health in the context of physical health. And it is important that we kind of include the other areas that make us complete and whole, so that at the end we can have an unlocked and complete woman.
Very important. That's very important. So, because somebody can be physically strong but mentally not healthy or socially or spiritually. I can be strong physically, mentally, but spiritually I'm not healthy. So that's gonna affect my physical health and all that. Okay, so we have to be balanced. So for those who are just joining, we're talking about health. What does it mean to be healthy? Is it because you look strong, because you can run, you can walk, because you are skinny? What does it mean to be healthy? So keep your questions going. We are waiting. We want you to be interactive, and please invite somebody. Share, 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 because somebody can learn something that will unlock their lives today. So we are continuing, Dr. Taiba. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we've defined health, right? We've talked about health as complete mental, physical, and social well-being, not just the absence of disease. Okay. So now we're in the month of women. This is Women's Month, right? So let's bring it home further. When we talk about health in a woman, what really we're talking about is preventable diseases and death, right?
Preventable
diseases and death.
Okay.
Because inevitably, death is part of the human experience.
Yes.
But there are things we can do to prolong our life and improve our quality of life.
Okay.
So then that brings me to the next topic of, let's talk about the leading causes of death among women.
The leading cause of death among women or men and women? Just women first?
Pretty much, it's pretty the same.
The same?
Yeah,
okay.
It's the same. The first three are the same, and then after then it starts to change a little bit. Okay. Men die more of unintended injuries like car accidents, right? But the first two is the same. We will use these top causes of death to launch into our next talk.
Okay.
What do we think are the top causes of death among women, men?
Among women, I've seen a lot of cancer, breast cancer. I've seen different type of cancer. I've seen women giving birth, dying. I don't know if that's the top. I've seen heart attack among men and women.
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert, but that's what I've heard and seen a lot, giving birth and all that.
Right? So what I tell my patients all the time is common things happen commonly, right? And rare things happen rarely. So if you look around us, you're either personally affected by, or you know a woman or a man that's affected by some form of heart disease. Right? So at the top of the list, the most common cause of death for both men and women is heart disease.
Heart disease.
Heart disease. I know, right?
Wow.
Heart disease. And then the second, which is what you said, is cancer.
Cancer, yeah.
Cancer. So those are the top two causes. And then the 3, 4, things like stroke, you can also tie it back to cardiovascular disease. So pretty much we need to talk about cardiovascular disease for both men and women.
Okay.
Because it is a top cause of death among men and women. It's number 1.
Wow. And I don't think we usually go to see a specialist for our heart. Especially women, we always want to go to the gynecologist, but we don't really go check our heart.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I went to check my heart.
So, actually, that's a good point. Let's talk about that. So, when you're a child, you go to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician sort of takes care of you generally. And then if they feel like you need to see a specialist, then they refer you to a specialist.
Yeah.
And for women, like you said, the gynecologist then becomes that primary care for you.
Yes.
A good gynecologist should be able to start the process, right?
Yes.
Like a woman coming to me for her annual well woman exam, I'm going to get all the labs and check her for things that can affect her heart, right? And that's well within my scope. And if I feel like she needs specialty care, then I can always refer her.
Okay.
So either or. So you can either start with your gynecologist as your regular PCP, or you can go get a PCP. But a regular gynecologist who takes care of women and only women should be able to manage some of that.
So we have to make sure we see a cardiologist. Plan, is that something we have to do, or we wait for a doctor to recommend you to do it?
Good. So a cardiologist is not going to be the first doctor you go see. You get referred to that.
Okay.
And I'm glad you said that, because when we think of heart disease, we automatically think of the cardiologist,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
But did you know, like, things like hypertension can cause heart disease?
Okay.
Things like diabetes, high cholesterol, those are everyday common things
Okay.
that your primary care or your gynecologist should be screening and monitoring for. You typically would get transferred to a cardiologist when it becomes excessive to the point that it's causing like physical heart disease, okay? But hopefully we prevent that from happening.
Yes.
Right?
That's the idea.
Right? That's the goal is not to treat your disease. It's to prevent the disease in the first place.
Yes.
Okay? Have we gotten any questions or anything?
Let me see if people are just connecting now. So we do not have any question yet. So people, we are waiting. Let's make it interactive. We want to know what you think of what it means to be healthy. And if you have a question, we have some people are commenting. Pastor Bouquet said, wow, insight. Reverend Sarah said, good evening, ladies. So they are coming. They're just warming themselves up, and they're coming. Yes.
So let's go back to the leading causes of death among women and men. So we said the top two causes are heart disease and cancer. So let's talk about heart disease. So when we talk about heart disease or cardiovascular health, the top three are hypertension, diabetes, and like hyperlipidemia, cholesterol. We either are personally affected by that or know women that have one or all three of them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not uncommon for you to hear about a woman that has high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol. She's on blood pressure medicine, diabetes medicine, and cholesterol medicine. And those three together are the top three reasons that lead to significant heart disease. Okay, you might say, well, high blood pressure. Let's talk about hypertension. So everyone knows high blood pressure or hypertension, and that is when your blood flowing through your blood vessels are working really hard, right? The pressure at which the blood is flowing is high. And so, yeah, when you first start having high blood pressure, you might not feel it. But over time, every day, when you're awake, when you're asleep, your body's just overworking, right? Think about that heart muscle that's like exercising, right? It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, but not in a healthy way, right? And that's the fear. The fear is that when the blood flowing through the heart is working really hard, the heart muscles will get larger in a way that is not proportional. So over time, pumping this enlarged muscle will eventually fail. Versus someone who's working hard, like working out and staying healthy, there's symmetrical growth.
Yes.
Right? So that everything is able to accommodate every part of the heart.
Okay.
And the reason why that is detrimental, high blood pressure that is that eventually the heart will fail.
Yes.
And then you go into heart failure. And then you really need to see a cardiologist. Right? But if we keep your blood pressure at bay with medication, we might never have to get to that point.
Yes.
Where you need to then see a cardiologist. So let's talk about screening for hypertension. People might not think that they need to be screened for hypertension. So if you never go to the doctor, you will never know you have high blood pressure and you just walk around. And we talk about hypertension as a silent killer. Because you're fine, stroke.
Yes.
You're fine, heart attack. And it's like, it came out of nowhere. No, it didn't.
Yes.
It didn't come out of nowhere. It was there, and it was building, and it was building until you got to the point where you literally, like hemorrhagic stroke is, your blood pressure was so high, it just blew through the blood vessel, right? Like that's what it is. And so it's important that we prevent that. And prevention starts from going to the doctor, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's your gynecologist or your primary care or your family medicine, right? Like it starts with going to the doctor to get checked.
Yeah.
Every time you go to your doctor, they will check your blood pressure,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Caleb, my son, who's 4, I was surprised to see that they check his blood pressure
Oh, wow.
at age 4. I'm like,
Okay.
good job,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Because there's certain disease processes that you might miss.
Mm.
And so checking blood pressure is important. And so back to adults, we start checking blood pressure in adults at 18.
18, not
18.
younger than that?
No, your pediatrician will. I mean,
Okay,
yeah.
but just, okay, for
adults.
adults. Okay.
We start checking at age 18, and between the age of 18 to 39, we typically recommend checking your blood pressure, like hypertension screening every 3 to 5 years. That is taking into account that young people don't go to the doctor,
Yeah.
right? Because young
Yes.
people are like, I'm healthy. When I was in college,
Yes.
when I was 18, I'm sure I didn't go to the doctor for a few years.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's like every 3 to 5 years. But if you are then found to have an elevated blood pressure, that changes. So the 3 to 5 years, like your 18-year-old with no problem who goes to the doctor and the blood pressure is 110 over 70, right?
Okay.
But once you go to the doctor, even at age 18, for example, and your blood pressure is high, then you have to
Yes,
get monitored more
regular.
frequently.
What about, so let me ask you, what about we have something at home to check our blood pressure. Can we do that at home too? Because some of them, they tell you, like I have one at home, I don't know if it really works. 1 minute it gives me one number, 1 minute another number. I don't know, how am I sure that what I'm doing at home
Is correct.
is correct?
That's good. So what I have my patients do is they come to clinic with their blood pressure. And first of all, I don't like the wrist blood pressure monitors because the readings it give are usually higher and less accurate. So your blood pressure, how do we check blood pressure? Make sure you're seated,
Okay.
both feet planted on the ground,
Okay.
right? Sit down for at least 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Because if you're running around and then you come and then you sit, you might be elevated falsely, right?
Yeah.
So you want to take your blood pressure seated for at least 5 minutes. If you get into the habit of checking it the same time every day, then it kind of normalizes. Everything works out eventually. So if you're the kind of person that want to take it in the morning, take it in the morning, in the evening, that's fine. Seated, upright, feet planted,
Feet planted. Okay.
and then you want to take it in your arm, your biceps.
Yes.
Okay. Get away from the wrist blood pressure
Okay.
cuff because they're usually inaccurate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to take it in the arm. And I have a couple of blood pressure brands that I recommend.
Okay.
Omron is one of them.
Yes.
And I tell my patients, sounds like Omicron or something, like
Okay.
COVID. But anyway, I like Omron because it's good, it's cheap, it's like $30, CVS, Walmart, you can buy it. And check your blood pressure at home. I actually give patients like a sheet of paper with like what to record their blood pressure and come back to clinic. Because
Okay.
as you can imagine, when the patient comes, sometimes they're like nervous.
Yes.
And so their blood pressure is elevated, or you have just one value. So if a patient checks it multiple times at home, that's usually more accurate
Yes.
than just your one-time check.
One time check. Okay.
Okay? And so by age 40, we recommend everyone going for blood pressure checks.
How many times do we do blood pressure check if
So-
you're 40 up?
So if you're 40 up, every time you go to the doctor, for sure. And then if you have risk, then I would recommend checking it every day. Sometimes I make my patients check it twice a day, in the morning and in the evening, just to see if there's any temporal change, you know, is it
Okay.
higher in the morning or in the evening?
Okay.
And then what is normal? What is normal blood pressure?
Oh, I am somebody, my blood pressure is usually lower than other people. So
Good for you.
Yeah, mine is low. Sometimes the doctor says it's a little bit too low. I have to take salt. I have to eat more salt than other people.
Okay, so you're the exception.
Yeah, I'm a kind of
yeah.
exception.
So, normal blood pressure is anything less than 120 over 80.
120 over 80. Okay.
Yeah. So when your doctor gives you blood pressure medicine, that is usually the goal. You know, they don't want to drop you too low, obviously. But normal blood pressure is 120 to 80.
Okay.
And then it starts to gradually go up. So we go from normal to elevated to stage 1 hypertension and stage 2 hypertension. So stage 2 hypertension is anything greater than 140 over 90.
140. Oh wow, that's okay.
So the range between 120 to 140 is like elevated type 1.
Yeah. Okay.
So the goal should be anything less than 140 over 90. That should be the goal. So when you go home and you check your blood pressure, the goal should be less than 140 over 90.
Over 90. Now I have a question here. Dr. Munda, my dear husband, said, what about phone apps that check your blood pressure? Can we trust the phones? There's apps on the phone that you can use.
No.
Can you trust that?
No. I have an app that I use with my patients where when they check their blood pressure, it automatically records it onto the app so I can see it at home. So like my pregnant mom, like she can check her blood pressure at home and I can see it, but like someone is checking the blood pressure. Just an app, like what do? You put it on your arm?
Yes, something like that, yeah. No.
I don't like that.
Okay.
I don't like that. Let's just stick to what is backed by research.
Okay.
All right, so we talked about that. Oh my gosh, it's already halfway through.
Yes, it's already halfway. Yes,
so let's talk about diabetes. Diabetes is another one that causes significant cardiovascular health burden. Diabetes is one of those diseases that I have conversations with my husband all the time about, like, would you rather have this or have that? And I told him, I'm like, I would rather have HIV than have diabetes.
Oh, wow. How so?
He's so terrified of HIV, I think, because he grew up in
It is
Nigeria or
terrifying. Where we came from, HIV, like, is
He's
death.
so terrified. And I'm like, why are you so terrified? Anyway, I was like, I would rather have HIV than diabetes because HIV, if you take your medicine, well, your viral load can become undetectable and you can lead a normal life.
Okay.
Diabetes affects everything.
Okay.
Everything. Your kidneys, your blood vessels, your vision, your nerves. It just eats at everything. Like sugar. Sugar is just like really bad. Sugar is really, really bad.
Okay.
Think about your blood vessels that go throughout your whole body. And think about the nerves that go throughout your whole body. When you have high sugar, it goes everywhere. All of your blood vessels, all of your nerves are like taken over by sugar, and they just don't work. I mean, so when you're walking, you have what we call neuropathy. You can't feel your leg. You can't heal well. You cut yourself, and normal people can just heal and move forward. But someone with diabetes cannot heal. And it's just like this chronic wound that just won't heal. And then talk about your kidneys. It just obliterates your kidneys. And then you go into dialysis. It affects the whole, it's a systemic disease that affects everything. And I wish people would take it more seriously. Because people just like sugars of like 200, 250, and they're just walking about their life. And they don't know that they're gradually decreasing their life expectancy. Because at some point, it will catch up with you.
Diabetes.
It will catch up with you.
I have a question about that. Now, there are people who have it genetically, like they say, my father had it, I have it, or can somebody just get it out of nowhere? And how do people get it?
So that's a good question. There is some genetic predisposition to it, which means that people who come from families with history of diabetes are more likely to get diabetes. Okay? So if you know that you come from a background where your mom, your dad, your aunt, everybody has diabetes, then you know that right off the bat, you're already dealt, a bad card, quote unquote. And so, but there are things you can do, right? Like your genetics is not a modifiable risk factor. There's nothing you can do about where you come from, but there's much you can do about your exercise and your diet. There's much you can do about going to the doctor. And there are people that come from a family with serious history of diabetes who do not have diabetes. Right? Because majority of type 2, we're talking about type 2 diabetes, which is typically diet and lifestyle.
Okay.
Diet and lifestyle more so than genetics.
There's the type 1 and type 2.
Right. So the type 1 diabetics are usually the ones that are more genetic than lifestyle.
Okay.
Those are born with their insulin pretty much doesn't exist. So they need constant external insulin. Whereas people with type 2 diabetes, your diet and your lifestyle is so bad that your insulin doesn't work as much due to lifestyle. And so those people, there's opportunity for intervention by just changing your diet and exercise. See, when I say just change your diet, just change your exercise, it's difficult.
It is.
Right? This is like learned behavior. Think about the house where you grew up and think about what food looked like. Right? Like you grew up in this home where as a child you didn't have a choice. You just sort of ate what was given to you. Yeah. And then your palate got accustomed to this kind of eating, right? Like this is what was modeled in your home. And you go through the first 18 years of your life living like that. Yeah. And often the first time you leave your home is like when you go to college where there's no control. So you just continue that bad habit until you get into your 20s and 30s. So when I say to begin to change your mindset, it's difficult.
It is. It is difficult, yeah.
So 1 in 10 Americans have diabetes.
1 in 10?
1 in 10.
Okay.
1 in 10 have diabetes, and 1 in 5 people do not know that they have diabetes.
Wow.
So which means that 1 in 10 is probably underestimated.
Yes.
And so it's important that we get diabetes care.
So there are screening for that.
So for diabetes, we typically start at age 35. And we screen by either doing like a fasting blood sugar, or we can also check your hemoglobin A1C. And the hemoglobin A1C is like a 3-month average of how well you have metabolized sugar. So when you come to your doctor that morning, you don't fast or you stop eating like a week before to try to like fib your results, it's not gonna work. 3 months. So I usually get an A1C on my patients to have a good idea of what you've been doing. And just to give you some sense of hope, a normal A1C, by the way, is anything less than 6.4. Greater than 6.4 is diabetes. If a patient comes and they have a A1C of, let's say, 12, that's really bad, by the way. 12 is really bad. Within 3 months, it's possible to change that number from a 12 to a 6.4.
3 months.
3 months, like, because that's the next time we'll check it again, because every 3 months. Yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is that there is hope.
There is hope.
It's doable. People do this every single day. So even if you're a person that your diabetes is so out of control, there is hope.
Yes.
There is hope.
Yes.
Okay. Cholesterol is another one.
Okay.
Everyone has heard of cholesterol. There's good cholesterol, there's bad cholesterol.
Yes.
The goal is to always increase your good cholesterol and decrease your bad cholesterol.
Okay.
Because cholesterol is pretty much fat that kind of clogs your arteries.
Yes.
By age 10, we start to see evidence of plaque or cholesterol buildup. So then it goes back to where you come from, the kind of food you eat. A 10-year-old doesn't really have control over what is cooked in your house, right? So when a 10-year-old comes and they have like cholesterol in their artery, that is a family issue, right? Like that is learned behavior that you can probably project that child is gonna go on to have diabetes, hypertension, and high cholesterol. Yes. So why do we care about cholesterol? It blocks your arteries, so your blood vessels are supposed to be open like this, and then as you get clogged, it gets like this. As you can imagine, when you get to a point that blood cannot flow through, that's when you get into trouble, right? So when you have cholesterol that completely blocks your blood vessel to the heart, you get a heart attack.
Heart attack, yeah.
If it blocks the blood vessels to the brain, you get a stroke.
Yeah.
So these things don't happen in a vacuum. You know, we're like, oh, she was just minding her business, she just had a stroke. Or she just minded her business, she just got a heart attack. Like, those things typically don't happen in a vacuum. There's usually a precipitating thing that has been building for years, if not decades.
I remember growing up, if back home, usually it was like, Mr. This and that, he just died. He was fine. He just went to sleep and died. Like, how do people just die like that? Of course, we are not dying. We are living. Amen. But we want to prevent this kind of thing because God has given us intelligence to prevent, to give us long life. So that's why we want to touch this aspect. Like, we want to prevent, especially because we have the technology. Everything is handled into us. So we have to take advantage of these things, right? To prevent it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when we talk about lifestyle, I've said this over and over. Lifestyle. What is lifestyle?
Your life, what you do every day.
Yeah. Like the diet, the food you choose to eat. When you're an adult, I really say choose. You know, we can have a discussion of do you choose to eat healthy? Or are you just eating what's available because that's what's affordable?
That's cheaper.
Right? Like, healthy foods are not cheap. So when I say choose, I acknowledge my privilege in that aspect that I can afford healthy food. But that might not be everyone's situation.
Yes.
And then we talk about exercise. We can say just go to the gym, just walk around your neighborhood. But what if you live in a neighborhood where you can't just walk around? It's not safe.
Yes.
What do? You
have a Zumba.
In your living room.
In the living room.
Right? That's assuming you have a TV and you have internet, right? So again, social determinants of health. Like, what is health? Because all these things, it's so easy to say, just work out.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to go to the gym. Just work out at home. Just do this. Just do that.
You know, the problem with that is, it's not that people don't want to work out, it's when. Like, when you come from work, and then you have to work at night, and then you have to eat and sleep. Like, people never, I just wanted to emphasize on that. We have to find the time, because that's very important. Because the problem is the time. I'm a testimony of that. I want to work out every day, but when do I do that? But when we know why we should do that, why is it important? Not just for men, but for women. The children, they have the advantage in school. They have 1 hour, more than 1 hour of PE, so they have a chance to run. But for us adults, we need to know why should we do that.
So, I mean, we've talked about like 40 minutes of why you should do that. Like, it's good for your health, okay? We don't want anyone having a stroke, heart attack, losing their limbs, none of that. Anyway, in terms of working out, you're right. It's difficult to find time to do that. So in my household, my husband is, he's too healthy for me. And he's like, how are you a doctor? Anyway, he's so healthy, and he works out 6 days a week.
Oh, wow.
6 days a week.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, you can work out because you work from home and you can do this and you can do that. And he was like, even if I didn't work from home, I would prioritize this because this is important to me, right? Like, that's what he is. And it's like, okay, how can I help you? So what we do is, in the morning, he works out in the morning before he starts work. And then he gives me time to work out in the evening before bed, because that's when it's more convenient. And then during the weekends, we like switch off. Like, I may go first in the morning for like a walk and then come back and he goes. So find your time and don't feel like you need to do all of the exercise all at once.
Okay.
So what is the recommendation for weekly exercise? The recommendation is 150 minutes a week, which is 30 minutes
5 days
per day. Per day for 5 days.
Okay.
But you don't have to do 30 minutes at a time. You can do 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. You can do 30 minutes at a time. You can do an hour and then, don't have to do as much the rest of the week. So 50 minutes a week is at your discretion. Like, how you break that 150 minutes per week is completely within your prerogative, right?
Okay.
Like, we just recommend 150 minutes per week of vigorous exercise. So like brisk walking, light jogging, biking.
Not just walking like mothers, we walk around the house. Does it count? Like, I teach, so I'm always walking. Does it count?
Does your heart rate go up?
No.
Yeah.
Doesn't count. Okay.
So that is a recommendation. Your heart rate should increase.
Oh, okay.
right? Like it should be above your baseline of what you're doing for it to matter, right? Because
Okay.
exercise is like a change from baseline. So there needs to be a change of some kind.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Got
And
it.
then diet. For some reason, we Africans, we think the starch is the main food rather than the side.
Yes.
Like, why is jollof rice the meal and the protein the side? Or the side is the salad?
Yes.
Like, let's try to flip that. Like, let's make the salad the main and
Okay.
the jollof rice the side.
Okay. So less jollof rice,
So,
more.
exactly. So what I'm trying to say is less carb, more vegetables. Rather than us thinking like, oh, we're gonna eat rice. Like
With.
why do we think rice is a meal?
That's where we came from.
Right.
Yeah.
Learned behavior.
Learned behavior.
Right? Like
yes.
these are learned behavior that like someone thinks that like I'm guilty of this, by the way. Like I'm part of this we.
Yes.
Like that we think that rice is the main
Yes.
and everything else is the side.
Yes.
Whereas it really should be the reverse.
Okay.
Like rice is your side, and then your vegetables, your fruits, your proteins, those are main.
But am I gonna get full with that?
Yeah, vegetable is actually quite filling.
Okay.
Like if you start off with that and drink a lot of water, you'll be full.
Yes. Okay. With water, that's important. Yes.
20 minutes. Okay. Any questions?
Okay, let me go back. So we had Brother Pius, who I think he was asking about the kit that we have at home and device. I think that was the blood pressure. I think Dr. Taiba recommended it, but we have to use the one that is on your biceps, right? Not on your wrist. So that was the question. And we have Sister Omo who said, wow. And we have somebody, Freedom, who said, hallelujah. So keep on sending, keep on commenting. We want you to be with us. We are doing this together, and we are learning a lot. Please tell your mom about the jollof rice. We want more vegetables. We are all guilty of that.
Oh, me too.
Like I like my rice with my beans. But is it beans? Is beans good?
Beans is good.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I don't know if my husband is online. If he can write there's like an Instagram person that he watches who tries out different food. And then see how your sugar spikes with it. So if you eat only rice, your sugar goes way up and then takes a while to calm down. But if you just merge that with vegetables or merge that with beans, the spike is not as severe.
Oh.
So carb is carb is not good. Like white bread, white rice, all the white sugar are not good. But if you buffer it, for example, your rice, if you add more beans to it, it kind of serves as a buffer to the sugar spike. And that's what you don't want, right? Because when you have that sugar spike, you kind of overwhelm your system. And your insulin is not able to keep up to level your sugar. But when you eat beans, then your sugar is kind of like more leveled than like only rice.
Okay.
So something that you can try, something little, like just try to add more beans or add more vegetables to buffer your sugar spikes.
Okay.
Let's talk about, so we said the top 3 reasons for death among men and women is cardiovascular disease, and we've talked about that.
Yes.
And then cancer.
Yes.
I don't know if we'll have time for mental health, but cancer.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about cancer.
Yes.
Cancer has risen. The burden of cancer has risen over the past few years, and it is now a common or popular cause of mortality among women.
Cancer.
So let's talk about the most common cancer among women. What do we think is the most common cancer in women?
Breast.
Yeah. Breast
And
cancer.
what's the other one? Vaginal?
Cervical.
Cervical, yes.
So breast cancer is the most common cause of cancer death among women.
Among women.
And it breaks my heart because this is one cancer that we actually have screening for, right? Like we have screening for it.
Yes.
So no woman should have to suffer or die from breast cancer.
Yes. Not today.
Not today, not
Yes.
ever.
Yes.
That should not happen.
Yeah.
Especially in a country like the United States, where we have mammograms,
Yes.
right? We have ultrasounds. We're able to screen for these things. So at what age should we start screening?
I think as a teenager, as soon as you start having the breast, you should start at that age. We didn't have that opportunity, though, but I think like here, we can start 18, maybe 16. Is
Yeah.
it too early?
No, I mean, I think what you're getting at is like a woman should know her breast,
Yes.
right? Your breast is your part of your body that you should know like the back of your hands. You should know what your breast feels like in the morning, in the evening, at night, all the time.
Okay.
So what you're getting at is what we call breast awareness. Every girl, every woman should have a sense of breast awareness. And when I say that, I mean you should know what normal feels to you,
Okay.
right? Before your period, the breast can get lumpy and tender, right? That's normal. And then after your period, the pain and tenderness goes away, and that is the best time to check your breast. So the best time for a woman to check her breast is right after she stops menstruating, right after her period. Because right before your period, there's like pain and tenderness and lumpiness. That's normal, but that can throw you off. So after your period ends, you should check your breasts when you're in the showering and washing your body. Just check your breasts to make sure it's normal, because majority of breast cancers are first noticed by women.
Herself. Yes.
So a
That's
woman
true.
is usually the one that brings that to the attention of her physician and says, hey, I noticed that I have this. So if we start teaching our teenagers from 18 to be self-aware, then they're able to differentiate what is normal for them
Yes.
and what is new. So by age 40, all women should start mammograms, age 40.
Oh, not before 40?
Not before 40.
Mammogram?
Mammograms.
Oh,
So
wow.
before 40, it is only people with increased risk. So if you have any genetic predisposition, let's say you have something called the BRCA gene that increases your risk of breast cancer, you want to start screening her earlier. If you have a first-degree relative who died from breast cancer at an earlier age, you might want to start breast screening earlier. But the average woman without any increased risk, age 40. And I recommend you get it every year. Get a mammogram every year.
I think I have a question on that too. So let me get these questions. Our beautiful sister almost said, can you have hypoglycemia when you are not a diabetes patient?
It's possible. We see that all the time in our pregnant women because of the difference in physiology during pregnancy. So hypoglycemia just means low blood sugar. Typically, a woman who's not diabetic, her body is able to compensate to a certain extent. But eventually, you will become hypoglycemic. You might feel dizzy, lightheaded, like, oh, I haven't eaten all day, I need to get something in me. Yeah, it's possible.
And I heard that. And she's asking about where can women find free cancer screening centers?
Good. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I'm all about public health and serving underserved, marginalized women.
Okay.
That's what I've done for a long time. So when I left Parkland, I went to a community health center where I currently work. And we provide free or very reduced prices for most things, including mammograms. I can share.
Yes, if you have some, we would love to have those resources where people can have, where we can go for free or less, pricey. We'll definitely share it on our pages, on our social medias. Yes, ma'am, you can go ahead. We have another question, but we'll read it after.
So the average woman will start doing breast cancer screening at age 40, and I recommend doing it every year. You can push it out to every 2 years, but if it's cancer, I'm doing it as frequently as I can.
Not 5 years? Somebody said, Pastor Ronke said, some people say mammogram is every 5 years.
Oh, please, no. Every year.
Every year. Okay.
Every year. The max any woman should go above 40 is 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you are at increased risk of breast cancer, like I said, if you have BRCA gene, there is like a specific gene that increases your risk of breast cancer. We start at age 25.
So before that, now you say if you are at risk, you have to do that before 40. Now, how do you know if you're at risk? If nobody in your family had it,
Exactly.
how do you know that you are not at risk?
So if nobody in your family has it, then you're likely not at risk because genetic things, remember, common things happen very commonly.
Okay.
So a woman, by the time they get to me, would have had a mom, an aunt, a grandma that died of breast cancer or had breast cancer. So when you have increased risk, it's not going to be like a shock to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's breast cancer. So I want to say something. There is a difference between breast awareness and breast exams.
Okay.
Okay. A woman should be generally aware of what her breast feels like, but as a field, we're going away from like doing breast exam, like women doing breast exams on themselves every day at home. Because what we've noticed is that women find things because you're looking for things, so you find things, and then it leads to over-screening, over-diagnosis, over-treatment for things that don't necessarily need to be treated.
Okay.
But I will say that I am all for know your breast. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Cervical cancer. Cervical cancer is also another cancer that affects women, especially in developing countries.
Why in developing countries?
Just because screening and access to care is more limited in developing countries such as sub-Saharan Africa than in the United States. Okay, I have a lot of patients that like are from that part of the world that never had like a speculum exam, or no one ever looked down there, or cervical cancer screening. I have a lot of patients from India as well that was just not a thing that was recommended. And I want to add that cervical cancer screening or cervical cancer prevention starts from childhood, and it starts with the HPV vaccine.
Can you explain that to us, please?
Yeah. So there are a set of vaccines that we recommend that children get, and one of them is HPV, human papillomavirus. HPV is the primary singular cause of cervical cancer. And if we vaccinate our children at like age 9, 10, 11, 12, before the onset of coitarchy, onset of sex, then we decrease the risk of HPV. Okay? And HPV is the most common sexually transmitted virus. It's not an STD that needs treatment like chlamydia or gonorrhea, syphilis, but it is sexually transmitted from women to men back and forth. Fortunately, healthy, immunocompetent people are able to clear that normally. So sometimes a woman might have HPV and I say, come back in a year. So I give your body a year to clear it, and times they clear it. But if we can start this process by vaccinating our children, then we can save a lot of the burden later on as adults.
Yes.
And now we can even get HPV vaccine up till age 26 or 45, depending on the HPV vaccine that you get.
Can you get after 45? Oh, wow.
No, up until 45.
Up to 45. Okay. And that HPV is for boys and girls?
Boys and girls. Because like I said, HPV is passed from boys to girls and girls to boys back and forth.
But the HPV is the one that causes cervical cancers to the girls.
To the girls.
Later, what about the boys? Does it cause anything to the boys?
I mean, you can have like anal cancer, you can have any of the GU stuff can be affected. So women, we talk about cervical cancer, but there's also like anal cancer, oropharyngeal cancer that's HPV associated as well. So there is benefit to that for both men and women.
So the parent need to ask the pediatrician if they did not recommend it to them. Do we have to ask?
So your pediatrician should initiate that and recommend that, because we know patients are more likely to be receptive to receiving vaccines if it is doctor-led.
Yes.
But in the rare case that you have a physician who doesn't recommend it, I'm empowering our parents to please be advocates for your girls and boys to get them the HPV vaccine.
Yes. I think it's 2 shots, the first and the second.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's 2 shots. If they get it before 12, it's 3 shots if they get it after 12.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cervical cancer screening. We start doing it at age 21, regardless of whether you're sexually active or not. Less than 30, so 21 to age 30, we do it every 3 years if it's normal. Age 30 onwards, we can do it every 5 years if we also do an HPV test.
Is it a pap smear?
A pap smear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the cervical cancer screening happens in a pap smear. Pap smear screens for cervical cancer. Okay.
Wow. Time, we only have 6 minutes. Can I take one question?
Yes, please.
Pastor Ronke said, does it matter if a family member who had cancer was a man? Does that still make one at high risk if it wasn't a woman who had a cancer in your family? Does it still put you in a high risk?
Yes, it depends on the cancer that we're talking about. Like, for example, colorectal cancer has strong genetic predisposition. So if you have anyone with colorectal cancer, anybody in your family with colorectal cancer, whether it was a man that had it or a woman that have it, doesn't matter. It increases your risk. Mm-hmm. So let's say like you're a woman, but your dad had colon cancer at age like 40, then you will start doing your colon cancer screening at age 30.
Okay.
So that's a cancer that doesn't really have any predisposition, that doesn't have any, what am I trying to say? Gender affiliation.
Okay, okay.
Whereas like breast cancer is another one. If you have a male first-degree relative that had breast cancer, it's most likely genetic. So yes, that increases your risk of breast cancer.
As a woman. Wow.
As a woman, yeah.
As a woman, wow.
Yeah. So let's talk about colon cancer. That might be the last thing we can talk about.
Yes, oh my
Lord.
goodness, it's already 56.
I didn't talk about mental health. Okay, let's talk about colon cancer. Colorectal cancer is another type of cancer that's high on the list, and it is entirely preventable in the form of colon cancer screening. There are different types of colon cancer screening, but the gold standard is a colonoscopy. Thankfully, they changed the age from 50 to 45.
Okay.
Okay, so if you can even push to start at age 40, I would, because African Americans or blacks are at increased risk of colon cancer at an earlier stage. Colorectal, yeah, okay. Colon cancer.
Okay.
Okay, and you do with a colonoscopy. What is a colonoscopy? A colonoscopy is pretty much a test that they put a camera through your buttock and look at your entire GI tract, your entire colon. And that test, typically, they will have you fasting for like 3 days before to just kind of clear your colon. And then you're put to sleep, and they do the test.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to screen for that too?
That is the screening every 10 years, starting at age 40.
Every 10 years?
10 years. That is if the test is normal. If they find something, then they may have you come back for follow-up sooner. But typically, it's every 10 years, and we recommend a colonoscopy. There are like different kind of tests that you can do, but the gold standard is a colonoscopy, and it's every 10 years if it's normal.
Years. Wow. You know,
unless, for example, you have a first-degree relative.
Yes.
So even though we recommend starting at age 45, if you had a dad that passed away from colon cancer at age 45, then you will start your screening 10 years before that at age 35.
You know what? We really, oh my goodness, it's already 58. So we are going, because the mental health is very important. So we are going to find time, because our women, we started talking about it back in the days. We're going to find a way to bring you back to talk about that.
Mental health.
Very, very important, because some people are going through depression. They don't even know. So the stress we put ourselves under, it's amazing. So we are going to find the time to talk about it. But something I wanted to share, to encourage us. The Bible says in the book of 3 John 1, verse 2, that, beloved, I pray that you may go well, that it may go well with you, and that you may be in good health, as it goes well with your soul. The reason we are doing this is not to instill fear. No, we do understand the power of information. We do understand that it's God who gave us intelligence. Instead of waiting for God to giving us a miracle, healing us, we can walk in divine health. So he has put that advantage in us. So that's why we do this. So let us really, really take advantage and really apply this information. Now, Dr. Taiba, before we go, we have all this information. Now, some people might not remember that have to check this and that and that. What should we do? Like for those who didn't feel start with us in the beginning, do we have to do checkup every day? Have to check everything? How many times a year?
So all adults should go to the doctor at least once a year, minimum. At minimum, go to the doctor once a year for just your basic checkup. When you go to the doctor for your annual checkup, they will check your blood pressure to make sure it's not elevated, it's not high. They will check you for diabetes. They will check you for cholesterol. They will get any imaging that needs to be gotten at that time. And then that's kind of a good way to know if you're physically healthy.
Okay, do your physical. Is that how we call it? We have to do our physical. So that's all we have for today. We are so happy and so honored to have our doctor here. She gave a lot of information. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please, these miracles we are praying for, we have to be healthy to enjoy it. So please, let's try. If you haven't done yours, this year we still have time. This is March, so get your physical, get your appointment. I need to do mine. My husband is more, he does it more than me. So I have to do mine too, so that we can end the year, instead of start being intercessors for health, we can praise the Lord because we're in good health. So the Lord bless you for today. That was Family Matter in Threshold Ministry International. We'll be back here next Monday with another number. God bless you and see you.